Hello everybody. This is my Happy New Year video for 2021. I imagine all of us are glad to see 2020 go by the wayside, which, other than leap year, every 365 days of the year, we get to celebrate a new year. I'm sure a lot of people listening to my Happy New Year video has had some difficult times during 2020. We're all looking for 2021 to be more serene. And I'm usually an optimist, but this year I'm a pessimist. I can't foresee 2021 being any more or any less dramatic than 2020. There's a lot of things that could change, and I am not a soothsayer, although I might look like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi or Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I am neither. On this YouTube account, Nothing But History, I have another account. It's spelled Ockteby. I more or less had that YouTube account dormant. I had a few videos public, and the other day I was checking my messages, and I've been a partner on that YouTube account for quite a while. So I've got like 400 videos in that account, and so I went in there and opened all of my videos up. I have some videos in that account that have over 100,000 views. But it will have to catch up before I can do any revenue sharing. I normally do not ask for people to subscribe or like or anything like that on my videos. But I've been noticing other people are enticing the people who watch their videos to subscribe or like. And if you've been around YouTube for a while, there's a reason for that, because your subscriptions mean a lot. So if you subscribe to my Nothing But History, this account, or if you go over to Ockteby and you subscribe over there, I would appreciate it, because it helps. I've been around YouTube for several celebrations of New Year. I came on YouTube, I'm reiterating what I've said before, but I'm basically saying this for people that may have found me for the first time. I came on YouTube back in 2006, so I've been around quite a while. The YouTube account I have, Ockteby, it's one of my first accounts on YouTube. I had some lesser accounts just to test YouTube out in the early stages, and I have completely forgotten the name of those accounts. I don't even know if they're out there. Eventually they'll probably be deleted. So I can't even remember what the username was, because at that time I was just testing the waters and had no intention of doing anything with it. So all in all, I guess I've been on YouTube since 2005. But 2021, I hope, is a productive year for everybody. I have some social accounts where I use those accounts to, I call it jabbering. I like to write, and I'm not one of these people that write for the purpose of publishing anything. I have no visions of grandeur on anything. Although, and I'm going to tell you, because this is a fact, I have been connected with some famous people. In fact, I'm not going to even mention the name, but when I tell you what it is, you'll know. I mean, if you want to go and find it on the YouTube, you can. But I produced the record, first record recording in Mercury Studios in Nashville, using some of the top musicians, Lloyd Green, Junior Huskey, Harold Bradley, and people like that. And I produced a record for a young boy. He was 16 at the time, lived here in the county where I live. I couldn't sign him to a contract because I couldn't remove his minority. His stepdad and I were associated with this production. So we went to Nashville. We flew down there in Jim Clayton's airplane. He had a Cessna 210, I think, at the time. And one of my partners runs the local airport, and he was also involved in this production. And we went to Nashville, and the person that, the young boy, 16, who we recorded at Mercury Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, was just inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame as one of the top writers in the nation. Most of you all that follow country music know of the recording Tennessee Whiskey. Well, he wrote that song. It was nominated for Song of the Year at the Country Music Awards, CMA Awards. But he wrote most of the hits for George Strait. Now, I don't have any copyright claims on anything that I'm telling you about. I'm just telling you that when he was 16, his stepdad and I produced his first record at Mercury Studios in Nashville. The engineer on that record was a guy by the name of Neil Wilburn. I've lost completely track of Neil. But Neil and I became real good friends. In fact, Neil and I had a publishing company and a record company that we co-owned. We had no funds in it. It was just a speculative publishing company and a record company. But anyway, Neil was an engineer. When I first met him, he was an engineer at Columbia Records in Nashville. And he was one of the engineers that did the album for Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. Columbia took those engineers out there to record that concert that Johnny Cash did at Folsom Prison. And then when we really became involved together, Neil and I, he had moved to, it was still on 16th Avenue South, but he had moved down the street, and someone had started a studio down there they called American Studios, and it was located in the back of a house. I think they had built an addition onto the back. But one day I went down to do some demo tapes, and Neil was talking to me. He said, Frank, he said, I just produced an album for RCA, and I'll give you a copy and tell me what you think about it. And I said, sure. And it was Guy Clark, Old Number One. I think he said that they had either printed or sold 50,000 copies of that album. And now if you go on the internet, you can find it. Evidently, RCA sold the master to someone else, because later on the album was released on a different album. I don't know, or a different record company, and I can't really think of the record company's name. But Anyway, when I came home with that album, my son at the time was, I don't know if he was in grammar school. I think he was in junior high school. And I played that album for him. And now he's like myself, he's a fan of that album, Old Number One by Guy Clark. Guy Clark, I think, is one of the best songwriters to ever go to Nashville. But Guy Clark, his music, well, the only way I know how to say it, I mean, there's a lot of people that like that type of music. But at that time, if you talk to some of the top musicians and the top entertainers in Nashville and ask them, who's your favorite songwriter? They would probably say Guy Clark. And the same thing was with Emmylou Harris. Now, I never met Emmylou, but the album that I'm telling you about that Neil Wilburn produced for RCA, he used Emmylou Harris as a backup singer on that record. So if you hear a lady in the background singing backup, if you get the album and you check the credits on the back, it'll probably tell you everything that I'm saying. But Emmylou did some backup on that. Some other, I don't know exactly who all was on the session, but it's one of my favorite albums. Occasionally I'll go on YouTube because all of the cuts on that album are on YouTube. So if you've never heard it, and I don't know if you would like that type of music, but it's just a fantastic album. And you can tell the way it was recorded that it was a bunch of friends got together with Neil there in American Studios and did that album. This is going to be a long video, but I'm going to give you a lot of information about myself because it's time to reveal. I was doing an album, and now some of the people, I'm not going to mention names because some of them are still, well, I don't know how to say it, but I just don't want to mention names because they never did go on to do anything. They could have. They could have used me to go to the top if they had have decided to do that. But I went down there with a group, and they had a girl singer in the group, and she was phenomenal. Well, at the time we did that master tape at American Studios in Nashville, I think Waylon Jennings maybe was upstairs in an office, and I'm trying to think of the piano player's name. Names start to leave me. That's what happens when you get 82-year-old like me. If I think about it, I'll tell you. But anyway, they could hear when they would play the track back in the control room. Back then, they used these big voice of the theater speakers, and I mean the sound that those things pumped out was just phenomenal. And they were upstairs, and they heard her. Well, I didn't know this until a few years later, but when we got back home, they called her and offered her a contract. And I didn't know this till years later. And she didn't accept it. She didn't even go. But that's why only a few people can be extremely successful in the entertainment business. If everybody took the advantage, there would be so many people out there that nobody could make it. So, to succeed in the music business, you've got to have that. You've got to have that drive, and that goes for anything. Goes for working for a company, for any kind of profession that you're in. Excuse me. If I had been a musician or a singer, I would have made it. But the direction that I was going is the hardest route to go to be a producer. There's so many variables. And when you're working in a disadvantage, and what I mean by disadvantage, it's the same as the singer that does not go to where singers are in demand. You can't, a friend of mine said, and this is so true, and this is no strike against Paducah, Kentucky, but he said, if they're looking for a piano player or a guitarist, they're not going to go to Paducah, Kentucky to find one. They're just going to go out on the street and say, hey, who can pick a guitar? This is Nashville. See, there's a lot of talent, super talent, that has gone to Nashville that never made it. And the reason they didn't is because you couldn't open any doors down there. So there's a lot of super talent that never made it in Nashville. And the guy that wrote Tennessee Whiskey, when he went to Nashville, I had opened all the doors. I know somebody did a documentary on him. Of course, they didn't include me, and that's fine. But a lot of these places they mentioned years before he went down there. In fact, one of the places, a publishing company down there, I had been down there the year before he went, and the guy that owned the place was listening to his master tape that I had because I had produced it. But the main thing I'm trying to say is I'm a firm believer in you've got to be satisfied with your situation, because if you're a believer, as I am, everything that happens for a purpose. It's just like when you get in your automobile to go to town, and let's say you pull out to the stop sign and you think, oh, I forgot to get my grocery list. Well, you may say, why am I forgetting this? I mean, and it may upset you a little bit. But the way I believe, if it delayed you to go somewhere, you probably didn't arrive somewhere that you shouldn't have been at a certain time. I'm a firm believer. I mean, I believe God's in control of everything. I believe that if you get in your automobile and you travel from, say, Atlanta to San Francisco, California, and you pull up to a stop sign and you start to pull out, and there's a guy pulls up behind you and you stop, you delay him long enough until it will delay his arrival to where he's going. I believe all that is under control of the deity. But that's getting a little deep, but that's the way I believe. And I believe the same way in the music business. I believe that if I had have gone, I've been married like 59 years, and I believe that if I had have produced a hit record, I probably wouldn't be married to the lady I'm married to now. I believe that. So if that was part of the master plan to bring me to this point now, that's the way I believe. And if you believe that way, it will sure settle a lot of your dissatisfaction on not being successful at certain things. I told you I'm getting into the weeds on this, but this is a new year, 2021. And as I always say, you may decide not to listen to the rest of this video, and that's fine. But there is a history out there that will come to an end, and you have no control over it. It's all controlled. That's the way I believe. And it's just like being a success in the music industry. Okay, I may not have been a success there, but I have been a success in other things. And if you measure success monetarily, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you can be successful enough to be comfortable, that's all you need. And even there, I think, okay, say I had produced a record and made multi-millions of dollars. I tell people this and they can't believe it, but it's the truth. I would not want to win the lottery for like $40 million or $100 million. Now, I know you may want to do that, and you may believe that I wouldn't, and that's why I don't purchase lottery tickets. Because if I won, say, $100 million in the lottery, you know what it would do? It would corrupt me, I believe. I believe all that money would corrupt me. And I don't want to be corrupted any more than I'm already corrupted. So I could go on and on with this video, but well, anyway, thanks for listening to this jabbering. I have a Facebook account that I only share with a few people. I don't associate it with my YouTube accounts, but I call it jabbering. So that's what I've been doing, is jabbering. And if you're wondering about all this hair, I mentioned it before, when the Kung Flu really got going, the last time I shaved was the end of March, and since April of 2020, I have not shaved or cut my hair. So anyway, thank you very much for listening to this video. You have a fantastic 2021, and I hope everything turns out exactly the way now let me put it this way. I hope things turn out for the good the way it will. Just keep the faith. We'll see you. Bye-bye.